Zelensky firmly rejects surrendering Donbas amid Russian advances. Kyiv, Ukraine, August 12, 2025. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has taken a resolute stand against ceding the Donbas region to Russia, warning that such a move would serve as a springboard for future Russian offensives. Speaking at a press briefing in Kyiv, Zelensky emphasized that withdrawing Ukrainian forces from the remaining parts of Donetsk Oblast under Kyiv's control would jeopardize the country's security and pave the way for further aggression from Moscow. His remarks come days before a highly anticipated summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska on Friday, August 15, 2025, aimed at discussing a potential ceasefire in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. Zelensky's stance on Donbas. Zelensky's comments were a direct response to reported Russian demands, relayed through U.S. officials, that Ukraine relinquish control of approximately 9,000 square kilometers, about 30% of the Donetsk region still held by Ukrainian forces. "We will never leave Donbas," Zelensky declared, underscoring that the region is critical to Ukraine's defense strategy. "If we leave Donbas today, our fortifications, our terrain, the heights we control, we will clearly open a bridgehead for the preparation of a Russian offensive." He cited the risk of Russian forces advancing toward key regions such as Zaporizhia, Dnipro, and Kharkiv in the future. The Ukrainian president argued that ceding Donbas would not lead to lasting peace, but instead embolden Russian President Vladimir Putin to launch a third war against Ukraine. For the Russians, Donbas is a springboard for a future new offensive. "If we leave Donbas of our own accord, or under pressure, we will start a third war," Zelensky stated, referencing Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 and the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022 as precursors to ongoing territorial ambitions. Context of the Trump-Putin summit. The upcoming meeting between Trump and Putin in Alaska has sparked intense speculation about potential peace negotiations. Trump has suggested that a resolution to the conflict may involve land swapping, though he has not specified which territories might be involved. Zelensky, however, has dismissed any agreement that excludes Ukraine from the decision-making process, calling such deals dead decisions that will never work. He stressed that Ukraine's territorial integrity and security guarantees are non-negotiable, asserting that the territorial issue cannot be raised without security guarantees. Zelensky expressed cautious optimism that Trump, acting as a mediator, does not fully endorse Russia's demands. "I do not believe that Putin's proposal is Trump's proposal. I believe that Trump represents the United States of America. He acts as a mediator. He's in the middle, not on Russia's side," he said, citing discussions with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. Nonetheless, he warned that pressure from the U.S. to cede Donbas would be dangerous, as it would weaken Ukraine's sovereignty and embolden further Russian aggression. Russian advances and Ukraine's defense. Zelensky's remarks come amid reports of Russian military activity in eastern Ukraine. While he rejected claims of significant Russian advances as a Russian narrative, he acknowledged that the situation in Donbas remains difficult and acute. Ukrainian military officials have reported that Russian forces are preparing for a new offensive, potentially by September, with small sabotage units breaching Ukrainian defenses in Donbas and advancing roughly 6 miles in 3 days. Despite these challenges, Zelensky insisted that Ukrainian forces have been holding off Russian assaults for nearly 3 weeks. The Donbas region, encompassing Donetsk and Luhansk, has been a focal point of the conflict since 2014, when Russian-backed separatists seized parts of the territory. Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022 saw Moscow capture significant portions of Donbas, and the Kremlin has since demanded that Ukraine withdraw from all occupied areas, including Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson as a condition for peace talks. Ukraine, however, maintains control of parts of Donetsk and the administrative centers of Kherson and Zaporizhia, which were liberated in 2022. Calls for security guarantees and European involvement. Zelensky emphasized that any peace agreement must include robust security guarantees to prevent future Russian aggression. He called for the involvement of European allies in negotiations, noting that no one except Europe is giving us security guarantees. A virtual meeting with U.S. and European leaders is scheduled for Wednesday, August 13, 2025, to align positions ahead of the Trump-Putin summit. European leaders, including French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, have echoed Zelensky's stance, insisting that Ukraine must be included in any peace talks and that its future cannot be decided without its consent. The Ukrainian president also urged Trump and Putin to consider finite conditions in any peace agreement, such as a frontline freeze and prisoner of war swaps, to ensure a sustainable end to the conflict. He warned that without such measures, Russia could exploit territorial concessions to prepare for further offensives. Domestic and international reactions. Zelensky's firm stance has resonated domestically, with even opposition figures in Ukraine supporting his refusal to cede Donbas. However, some analysts suggest that Zelensky has shown pragmatism in private discussions, potentially open to limited territorial swaps if accompanied by strong security guarantees. His political survival hinges on the terms of any ceasefire and how they are framed to the Ukrainian public. On X, reactions to Zelensky's position vary. Some users, like @WoleAsiwaju, commend Zelensky for prioritizing Ukraine's defense, noting that abandoning Donbas would leave other regions vulnerable. Others, such as @WadeTurnbull, argue that the war is effectively over and that Ukraine has been used as a proxy by Western powers, urging Zelensky to accept a resolution. These posts reflect the polarized sentiment surrounding the conflict, but lack conclusive evidence to verify their claims. Broader implications. Zelensky's rejection of territorial concessions underscores Ukraine's commitment to its sovereignty, even as Russian forces continue their offensive in Donbas. The region's strategic importance, both militarily and symbolically, makes it a non-negotiable asset for Kyiv. As the Trump-Putin summit approaches, the international community watches closely to see whether diplomatic efforts can yield a ceasefire without compromising Ukraine's territorial integrity. The Ukrainian leaders' warnings about a potential third war highlight the long-term risks of appeasing Russian demands. With Ukraine's allies rallying behind Kyiv and European leaders advocating for its inclusion in peace talks, the outcome of the Alaska summit remains uncertain. Zelensky's message is clear. Any path to peace must prioritize Ukraine's security and involve its voice at the negotiating table.